Welcome to Wilbur, a section of Trenton, New Jersey you may never have seen. It's not really possible to know what goes on here in the inner city ghetto from a passing commuter train or a car. But for these residents of Wilbur, life is a daily battle, a constant challenge, a struggle, and the good guys don't always win. There were 5 church services here in this community this past Sunday, as well as 5 stick-ups. Children play in this playground, and drug dealers sell their wares on every corner. There's a young man down the street in medical school, and one from across the street in prison. Life is difficult indeed in Wilbur, and it's easy to curse the darkness. But not too long ago, a young woman lit a candle. Her name was Jane Woodson.
With her own hands and the help of volunteers, Jane rebuilt an abandoned home for her family, part of a unique program started by Martin House to give the poor a chance at owning a home.
When I first came into this house, it had rubbish everywhere. The kitchen was really ran down. The floor was like there were holes in the floor when you walked in the kitchen. Everybody said, yuck, no way, I don't want this one. I said, this is my house. I want this one. We finished in January. I just looked at it. I just plopped down into a mounds of clothes and just said, I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it. And I felt great.
The Martin House first started in 1968 or 69 when there were civil disturbances. Some people may call them riots. I'd have some young fellow or child come in. I would work with that child, and that child would start changing his attitude or her attitude. And then all of a sudden, one day, they're gone again, and a new child comes to this particular house. And when that child came, the same thing would start over. It's when I began to internalize praying and thinking about the gospel that in a very real sense, before I can affect people, we're going to have to stabilize them, that people were moving all over the place. And I called that, in my mind, a kind of nomadic people. And like nomads, they would have to live in an area and then move on and survive the best way they could. Housing is indeed depth, roots, and stability. So in '72, we began our little housing project called the Better Community Housing at Trenton Incorporated, and we started that way. There's a basic dignity that people have to have. Shelter would be one of those. So I packaged both shelter and the cultural American dream, which is your own piece of property.
And I always wanted a home, but the rate I was going, I didn't feel that I could get one, because when you go to the banks, you got to be making a certain amount of money, or you got to have credit, and yet no one wants to give you credit. Well, how can you get credit if when you go to the bank where you know you normally get credit, that you, I mean, you know, it was like a hopeless situation.
The banks, I discovered, would not, under any circumstances, deal with poor people where they're at. So what we had to do is beat enough capital in the beginning, so we paid off all our bills, then we could be self-financing. No project in this state produces any level of one stick for that group. The way we do it is, a person comes to our community meeting and they make themselves known. After that, you must attend 50 hours of our classes in plumbing, carpentry, and electricity, such as changing a receptacle, changing a switch, changing washers, knowing where the circuit breaker's out, how to fix a piece of sheetrock, how to paint properly, all these little things, how to maintain your house so that, one, you can fix it, and two, enough exposure that you know you're not being taken if you have to get a vendor.
When something breaks, like I never could fix a washer, you know, and it's something really, really simple, but I never could do that. When I went to the classes for that, I mean, it's only a little ring. You just take it off and put another one on. I mean, it's just that simple. It costs 59 cents. Whereas before, I know I didn't have to pay it, but I saw the bill that came through there. It was like $60. The man was only there for 10 minutes. And I'm like, I don't believe this. So I felt really thrilled about that. I mean, I can change a wash and I can go to the store and buy it.
Then you must give 50 hours of working on someone else's house. This begins part of the sweat equity program. So I put a great deal of emphasis on work. I had a young man who worked with us from this community who's a friend of mine, Jimmy Lee Youngblood, and he hit me one time and said, Well, you know, the real problem with your program is, don't you? If you join up, you gotta work. You must spend as a minimum 100 hours working on your own house. Most people spend 300, 400, 500 hours. Once they're done their sweat equity, pay $500 down, $125 a month for the next 10 years, but they're responsible for their taxes, their insurance, water, sewer, and utilities. We tell people for their whole house they need about $300 a month. And then they end up getting total ownership in 10 years.
Every day I'd come home, pick Kyle up from the daycare center. He would say, right there at the daycare center, "Mommy, do you have another meeting tonight?" I would say, "No, Kyle," or "Yes, Kyle," or "I'll see you after my meeting." And he just sort of looked sad. It was kind of hard for me, but I knew I had to just go on and it would be over soon. I was taking 2 courses at Mercer County Community College and working and coming to the Martin House courses at night. My brain was frying. That pressure makes you want to say, "I can't do it, I'm going to stop." But I made up in my mind that I was just going to do it and I was going to finish.
Jane's home is only one of 70 such homes that Martin House has built. The program works, but what we've got to be able to do is make it work for many more people. When men and women have their own homes, when they have a stake in their own neighborhoods, when they can feel part of a community, then you can talk to them about rebuilding their lives. And better housing is only one part of the total program that Martin House offers.
We also need you at City Council at 5:30 if you can make it.
Twice a month, community board meetings provide government at the grassroots level.
I lived in the Miller Homes, and I did not move. I ran away from that place. I could not take it any longer.
We can't choose at this time the areas, even though we can understand that, but you can make things work in any area.
Because there's always someone that's willing to go that extra step to try to have a decent home. And if it means getting together with the neighbors to band against ungodly forces in the area, then that's what it takes.
Working and school-bound parents drop off their children for preschool classes. A learning center enables adults to earn high school equivalency diplomas so they'll qualify for better jobs.
But you made it 13, you added it in the end.
A resale shop offers warm clothes and furniture at affordable prices. Youth programs nurture education after the regular school day ends. A board of directors raises capital and supervises spending.
These programs are staffed and run by volunteers, people like you and I who believe in the human spirit, who believe that if given a chance and the right guidance, even the most disadvantaged can pull themselves up.
I come from a family of 13 children. We were migrant workers. My father was a hardworking man, and he worked his way up. And with the help of his family, we managed to really get out of the impoverished level that we was in. The drugs and the alcohol and the crime and you name it. I was exposed to it in the Trenton area. And I had to live with it throughout the 26 years that I was in Trenton. And I've seen the deterioration of the communities. And I know for a fact, from personal experience, that any work that I do to help rid Trenton of that type of situation is a help.
Most of the people that have gone into the houses and that I've befriended while I'm down there, I think that it has caused them to have a better sense of community, a better sense of self-worth. They've become friends among themselves, a number of the people, and have a sort of support group. So I think from their side that the people that have been involved and that we've been able to provide housing to, it really has helped them.
Being an architect, I thought I would get involved and we would do one city block. And that would be my contribution. But after you get involved, you find out that the houses are only a small part. It's trying to affect the lives of the people in the inner city. They're getting an opportunity to have their own home ownership, and that should affect their children and their children's children. And the good that comes out of my Saturday work will live on long after I'm gone.
There are more than 300 volunteers working for Martin House right now, and everyone has their own reason for getting involved. Many do it out of love, some do it to give something back to the system we live in, and some do it to make it work better for all of us, not just a chosen few. I'm sure all of you have some skills that we can utilize, and you can share those skills with others who want to learn. If you're free, come on down, climb a scaffold, paint a wall, hang some sheetrock, and don't worry, Father Brian will be glad to put you to work.
We can deliver a home that even if mom and dad are making minimum wage, if they can believe so deeply in themselves that they can build a house of beauty and art and goodness, that if they relate to each other, they relate to their children, they relate to the school, they relate to working together, that we can build a world that makes sense. And I think the core of Wall Society is the nuclear family that lives values without bitterness and with joy, and we can do it here.
Sweat equity by the furrow of your brow. That's the root of the Martin House system. These are people who want to work, who want a chance to build their own lives, build their own homes, and they can do a better job of it with your help.
I just get all warm and bubbly inside when I think about the Martin House. It was great. It was a great inspiration to me, not only just to get a home for myself, but to be able to help others, to try to build the community which I grew up in, that once was a very, very beautiful community. Hopefully it will be that way again.